Hello everybody, welcome to today's video. I am Spook tonight, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about every single killer in Dead by Daylight. I'm going to be ranking them in a tier list format based on how fun they are to play against. So this is going to be basically you playing Survivor, and it's going to be every single killer in the entire game, and I'm going to be kind of ranking them on how fun they are to play against. Also, this is going to be kind of based off of their counterplay as well. That's because I find that most killers that are fun usually have lots of counterplay or some cool counterplay bits to them. Anyways, with that being said, let's get right into it. Trapper. So when it comes to Trapper, I think playing against Trapper is alright. In most cases, I think he would probably be a B tier. I think the thing with Trapper is that he's very straightforward, and he doesn't have any fun counterplay really, other than making him step in his own traps, which isn't really counterplay in most cases. It's kind of just on like the actual killer player, if he does it or not, because most Trappers will be smart enough literally just to not do it. So with that being said, I think Trapper is a B tier. He doesn't have like a fun chase power, so I don't think in chases he's not really that fun to play against, and most of his like stuff just usually comes down to your team knowing how to play against Trapper, just looking for traps, and yeah, that's about it. So I think he's a B tier. Wraith. When it comes to Wraith, I'm gonna put Wraith in probably most likely maybe B or A. I'm not really sure yet, but when it comes to Wraith, he's pretty fun. You can mess around with his power a little bit, like spam vaulting these cloaks to make him cloak on purpose, and you can waste a lot of Wraith's time. So with that being said, I think Wraith is probably A tier or B tier. So yeah, he's overall fun, and I don't really have much to say about him. He's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's Wraith, you know? So yeah, probably B or A. Hillbilly. Hillbilly, when it comes to playing against Hillbilly, I'm probably going to end up putting him in A tier. He's pretty fun to play against. I mean, his power is also like Wraith's, where it's very straightforward, and with Hillbilly, he just has a chainsaw. I would put him in S tier if Hillbilly had a little bit more than just his chainsaw, but when it comes down to it, it's just his chainsaw. And I mean, there is some cool counterplay you can do, like crouch teching or just hiding in a corner at an edge of a loop. Like, for instance, you can bring Billy to Shack, and then you can like sit in one of the corners of the doorway before he ends up full using his saw, and you can kind of screw him around there. But yeah, pretty much he's kind of fun to play against and chase, and that's why he's going in A tier, and that's about it. There's nothing really else for this character. Nurse. Nurse is one of the interesting characters on this list. So when it comes to Nurse, either she's F tier or A tier, and really what makes this like change if she's an A or F is based on how good the nurse is. If the nurse sucks, she goes instantly in A tier. A bad nurse can be very fun to play against. You can screw her up so goddamn easily. But if a nurse is really good, she will literally destroy you, and there's very little you can do about it, and that makes her an F tier. It's kind of just based on counterplay. This is what the whole list is really based on. It's kind of like how fun it is to counter the killers, I guess. And Nurse is on the bottom of the list because her counterplay is just terrible. Like, it's really bad. She really doesn't have much counterplay if she's really good. And yeah, that's about it for Nurse. Myers. When it comes to Myers, I think Myers is kind of an interesting killer on this list, because I'm going to put him in a spot where I don't think many people are going to agree with, and I'm putting him in C tier. The reason why I say this is because he's kind of boring to play against. And I know that's kind of crazy, right? Like, he's an M1 killer. That's his entire power. It's just M1ing. How is that boring? Like, can't you loop him for like 5 gens? Yes, you can. But that doesn't matter because he's still pretty boring. The counterplay against Myers, at least in my opinion, is the same counterplay against Plague and Legion. Just don't heal. Just stay injured the entire game, because he's going to insta down you anyways once he gets his tier 3. So just stay injured the whole game. Just take the hit, you know, be that guy. Like, just let you yourself be insta downable the whole match, and that's how you play against him, right? And I mean, it's an easy counterplay, I'm not going to lie, but it's still pretty boring at the end of the day, and that's why I'm putting him in C tier. Hag. Hag is a really easy character to put on this list, in my opinion. I think Hag is a B tier. She's either A or C, depending on how the game goes. And the reason why I say this is because if you're playing with good teammates that actually know what they're doing, she's easily an A tier. She has a lot of counterplay, even in chase, because if you haven't played against Hag, Hag can do this thing where it's like a 50-50. She can place a phantasm trap on a pallet, and then when that gets triggered, she can choose not to TP and kind of sandwich you, kind of like Dredge with his Rediment. and it can make some really fun counterplay, just like how Dredge's Reniment can make some really fun counterplay as well. It's kind of the same thing with that. However, on the flip side, if your teammates don't know how to play against Hag and are constantly like just setting off her traps for some reason, like absolute just it's just brain dead cavemen, Hag can be very bad, and she can be like C tier because she is quite literally the solo queue stomper or the noob stomper of the game. I think she's like 100% that character compared to any other character in the entire game. And so she's either A or C depending on how you see it, but that's how I see it personally. Doctor. When it comes to Doctor, I'm putting them in C tier. And the reasoning for this is because no matter what type of Doctor you play against, it's always just boring. Like, it literally is always just boring. And I find Doctor to play as also pretty boring. In Chase, he literally feels like he's doing absolutely nothing most of the time because his shock is usually useless, especially if you're using it against someone with low pain. And I know that's on the killer side, or it's on the killer side, but it doesn't really matter, right? Like, in most cases, you get shocked and you press vault, you're gonna vault. Like, you're not like getting shocked at all. Like, you're still gonna be able to vault that vault even after getting shocked because there's like a short window where you're still able to do it. And I don't know, it just makes Doctor very boring and Chase because of that. It's quite literally 50-50 against Doctor and Chase. It's like, am I gonna get the right amount of pain to be able to vault this before I get screwed over by his M2, or am I just gonna be able to vault this? You know, like, that's basically what it's like. And his static blast and, you know, his hallucinating power part of his kit is also pretty boring. It's not that crazy. It used to be way cooler back in the day, but now it's kind of watered down compared to what it was back then. If you don't know what I mean, you used to get jump scared by like these little flashing screens back then, and I thought that was kind of cool. I kind of want them to bring it back for Doctor because, you know, it's kind of an interesting part of his kit, but he doesn't have it anymore. So yeah, I think Doctor all around is pretty boring. Even the interesting builds he can do, like skill check Doctor, is still pretty boring. So yeah, at the end of the day, he's just a pretty boring killer. Yeah. Next up, we have Huntress. So when it comes to Huntress, I think Huntress is probably probably B tier. She would be A tier. I do think she's very fun to play against, but it's just that one part of her where her hitboxes and her hatchets are not that great. And I mean, that's what puts her down in B tier, I think. Like, she can be very fun to play against, but I feel like every time you're like looping a Huntress really well and you're like looping her for like literally 3 gens or something like that, she ends up throwing a hatchet and it hits you when you're literally across the entire map. Or like, you'll be like looping her on, like, for instance, a TNL, and you're behind a wall and she throws a hatchet and it hits you somehow, and it's like, all right, that's awesome. I don't know how the hell that hit me, but sure. You know, she's literally just like that. She's like the, yeah, okay, sure, killer. You know, like, you get hit when you shouldn't get hit, and when you should get hit, you don't get hit, which is why she's not an A tier in my opinion. If they fixed her collision, or however her power works with peen, because I think peen might be a part of her power, I'm not sure, but if they fixed her power and made her hatchets work like they're supposed to, maybe like, you know, Trickster, make her hatchets work like Trickster's knives, yeah, she would probably be definitely A tier. But because they don't work like that, she's B tier, just because her hatchets are just unpredictable and they don't work like they're supposed to. Bubba. Bubba is the next killer on this list, and I know a lot of people are probably hyped for Bubba. Now, Bubba is instantly going to go into S tier. I know, I'm one of those survivors who love playing against Bubba. Now, the thing with Bubba is that he has some very great counterplay. Like, you can stun him with a pallet while he's using a chainsaw if you hit it off right. You can, like, vault against his power and make him hit into the wall, thinking that he can hit you through the vault because, you know, there's that one tech with Bubba where you look down and it gives you an extra centimeter through the vault. You can make Bubba think they can hit you, and then you benefit off of it. You know, some Bubbas can even get 360'd if they're not that great, which is kind of funny. And also, some exhaustion perks can be really fun against Bubba and Chase too. Mostly Dramaturgy, which is the perk I use a lot, by the way. And you can use it while he's like in Chainsaw Sweep 1. When he's in Sweep 1, you can use it while he's in Sweep 1, and then you can screw him over for Sweep 2 and 3, and he will never be able to hit you, which is very great. Also, because he's an M2 killer, you know, he's already instantly more fun than most M1 killers because he actually has a chase power. And I do think his chase power is more fun than Hillbilly, which is why he's in S tier. There's just more counterplay to his power than there is for Hillbilly. So yeah, he's pretty much an obvious S tier, I think. Freddy Cougar. When it comes to Freddy, I actually do think he's more fun than Clown. Just because his snares go through walls and you can kind of dodge them and kind of do some cool stuff. Also, his dream pallets can be very fun to play against. Like, literally, you can stun him with his pallets if he's not being careful. And they're also kind of just fun to just play around in general, I think. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say about him. There isn't really much to say. Like, he has a TP, but his TP doesn't really do much in chase most times. Because you can tell that he's TPing anyways. And yeah, I don't know. He's kind of just like, he's kind of just A tier-ish, B tier-ish. He's like alright. He's kind of fun to play against. He's more fun than Clown, like I said. So yeah, I don't really have much more to say about him. Pig. When it comes to Pig, she's probably C tier. Pig's chase power is quite literally probably the worst in the entire game. Her ambush is quite literally just useless. And I mean, if a Pig does use it in chase, like, okay, just hold W key. Like, that's all you have to do and she won't hit you. So I don't know, man. I mean, Pig's kind of boring. Also, her head traps are like probably the most boring power in the entire game, probably. Like, quite literally. So she's pretty much just C tier. Like, she doesn't have much counterplay. She's one of those killers where her counterplay is holding W key, and there will be a long list of like reoccurring stuff when it comes to that. I don't like counterplays where you just have to hold W key. I'm literally going to get into that pretty soon as well with the next killer I'm going to be talking about. And yeah, so I think Pig is just C tier just because of that. She's just very boring and her counterplay is boring. So yeah. Clown. Clown is the worst version of Freddy. So Clown is instantly C tier. I would literally put this guy in F tier if I could, but at least he has some sort of chase power, which at least has some sort of counter, so he's not immediately F tier like Nurse or the killer that's going to be after him. But with that being said, Clown is still C tier. Now, the reason why I say this is because his counterplay is extremely boring. If he brings Garnish Kit and like Flask, and just brings like speed add-ons or hindered add-ons, in chase you cannot loop him like at all. Don't think you can loop him, because you can't. You'll go to a pallet, he will throw a speed bottle down one side, throw a hindered bottle down one side, make you step in the hindered bottle, and then he's going to rotate around again and get the free hit every single time. That's literally what a Clown player does every single time, so you can't loop them. So then that brings it to your only other counterplay, which is holding W key, which is the only counter that works against him. Yeah, he's might come at you with a speed bottle when you hear his terror radius. That's when you want to run. As soon as you hear his terror radius, you want to run. And he may have a speed bottle coming at you, but it doesn't really matter because he won't be able to throw a hindered bottle at you because you're going to be blocking line of sight with like trees and stuff. So, and yeah, his counterplay is just boring. Either you hold W key or you die. That's pretty much his entire counterplay. And I don't like holding W key against killers for counterplay, so that's why he's C tier. It's quite literally the same thing as Pig. You hold W key, it's very freaking boring, and yeah, that's about it. Either you hold W key or you pre-drop pallets or you pre-vault. You just do pre-everything. It's so stupid. It's boring as hell. Alright, if you think I crashed out on Clown, you're in for a treat, because here comes Spirit, the worst killer in the entire game to play against. This girl is immediately an F tier. I hate Spirit so much on Survivor. She quite literally has zero counterplay. And if you think she has counterplay and you bring Iron Will, guess what? You don't, because there's a guaranteed 100% chance that she has an exhaustion perk on. Either it's genetic limits or the Vecna Crow perk, whatever it's called. I always forget it. But they either have those two perks on, so there literally is no counterplay to this girl. The worst part is that the only counterplay she technically does have is listening to her phasing, because she has the phase sound. But the worst part about it is that this audio that she has is complete ass, and it doesn't even work how it's supposed to, because it's literally just one single audible sound that does not change depending on where she is near you. It literally does not change. She could be on the left of you or the right on you, and you would not know. There's no way to tell. So it immediately makes her just instantly horrible for counterplay. She's an F tier to play against. She has quite literally zero counterplay. Like, and I'm sick and tired of people thinking she has counterplay. She literally doesn't. Like, if she's a good Spirit, you literally have no counterplay at all. And unlike Nurse, if someone's bad at Spirit, they are still going to do better than Nurse, just because Spirit's power is easier to use than Nurse. All you need to play Spirit is a headset. Literally anyone who has a headset can play Spirit. The only time you play against a Spirit, and she sucks so horribly bad, is probably because it's little Timmy who just got home from school playing on his TV with his parents scrolling on TikTok in the house right next to him, and he can't hear anything. Like, that's quite literally the only time you can actually play against a spirit. So yeah, spirit is instantly F tier. This killer is just horribly designed in my opinion. She's a cool killer, you know, she works off sound, but she's just botched in so many areas, and they really, I don't know, they should probably give her an update or try fixing her counterplay wise. At least make her phasing sound more audible so you actually know where the hell she's coming from, like it's supposed to. So yeah, anyways, let me get to the next killer. I've spent too much time on spirit. Luckily, the next killer is actually kind of fun, which is going to be Legion. Legion, in my opinion, is instantly an A tier, and I'm sick and tired of people acting like he's not fun to play against. This killer is super fun to play against. He's super macro based on Survivor. Yes, his base counterplay is similar to Myers in Plague, where you just want to stay injured the entire game so that he can't use his power, right? But the fun part about his power is that his power actually has other stuff than that, right? Like, for instance, you get hit by his frenzy, and you can try body blocking one of your teammates so they can't get hit by frenzy, right? He has this cool, like, macro part of his power, unlike Plague and Myers, and for instance, like Ghostface have, where, you know, Legion's actually able to have all these cool, unique counterplays, right? And that's why I think he's an A tier. I don't really have too much to say about this, but he is a very fun killer, and if you play against Legion and you play against him a lot and you start to form these cool counterplays against him, you'll know what I mean and how he's an A tier. You just have to play against Legion a lot, which I know a lot of people don't want to do because a lot of people instantly just hate him for some reason, but if you actually play against him a lot, he becomes fun to play against. Like, seriously, he does. Alright, Plague. When it comes to Plague, Plague is either B or C tier. Now, Plague, similar to some other killers, like, for instance, like Hag, she is a huge solo queue destroyer and noob destroyer as well, just because some new players might instantly start cleansing as soon as they get sick, and it can screw the entire team over. But in most cases, her entire counterplay is literally just staying injured and having Vile Purge on you the entire match, which is, you know, pretty boring for a counterplay, which is why she's like B or C tier. And I mean, her red puke can be kind of fun to play against sometimes in chase, but I mean, I don't know. I think she's just pretty boring just as a killer in general, and I don't really have too much to say about Plague. I think everyone can probably agree that Plague is easily just not that fun to play against, and so yeah. Ghosty. When it comes to Ghosty, I'm gonna put him like similarly towards Legion, but not actually in an A tier spot like Legion. I think Ghostface would probably most likely be top of B tier. And the reason why I say this is because similar to Legion, Myers, Plague, with Ghostface, you want to stay injured so that he can't benefit off of, you know, his insta-down stock, right? But the thing with this is that he still has a stealth power, which means if you're not being careful enough while staying injured, he can actually benefit off of that. So he has kind of this cool, kind of like macro-micro situation where you have to be careful doing the injured counterplay, because unlike the other characters, he actually can be, you know, dangerous when doing it. Also, he kind of has some other cool counterplay where you can take a hit for someone who has stock on them and is insta-downable. So he has some of this fun counterplay against him. But overall, I don't think he's super crazy. He's still an M1 killer at the end of the day, which is why he's a B tier in my opinion. He just doesn't have too much. He does have some cool counterplay, but it's nothing too crazy, so yeah. Next up, we have the Demogorgon. Now, Demo is kind of fun to play against, I guess. He's kind of like a weird killer, I think. Like, he can be fun, but also he can be kind of bland at times. So, like, I don't really know where to put him. I think I'm gonna put him B tier. He can be pretty bland. Like, I don't know. I don't really have too much to say about him. He kind of just is what he is, I guess. Like, I kind of just think he's just a B tier. I don't really have anything to say about him, though, so I don't know. But, yeah, I think that's about it. Next up, we have Oni. Now, when it comes to Oni, I think Oni is kind of an interesting killer on this list, because I don't even know where I would put him. Like, he's the only killer on this list where I honestly don't know what tier I'd put him in. Like, I literally don't. So I'm not going to put him in a tier. I'm going to put him in his own tier, just Oni tier. And the reasoning for this is because Oni's entire counterplay at the start of the game, if you're on a good team, is to literally pre-drop every single pallet and like make it so he can't M1 you, so he never gets his power, and you do all gens before he gets his power. Like, that's his entire counterplay. So it's like this really weird killer. Like, I don't know where I'd put him on the list for that. It's kind of fun doing it against him because he gets no power, but like, I don't know, it's kind of just like weird. Like, I don't really know where I'd put him. And when he does get his power kind of just has like mediocre counterplay also. So even if he does have his power is still kind of just mediocre. So like, I honestly don't know where I'd put him. Like, I kind of want to put him in A tier, but then he's like, I don't know, he's like, yeah. That's all I have to say about him. Like, I don't know where I'd put him. So yeah. Next up, we have Slinger. Slinger is extremely fun to play against. I think he's an A tier in my opinion. I really do like playing against this guy. His entire power is literally a chase power. Like, that's his whole entire thing. Like, he just shoots at you with his Redeemer. Like, that's literally his whole power. And it's pretty fun. You can dodge it. You can try breaking his chain on stuff. You can take hits for people who get, like, speared. Like, he has all this counterplay. He's so much fun to play against. He really is. And yeah, I don't have much to say about him. He's an easy A tier. Like, A, even S. Like, he could even be S tier, to be honest with you. If you want to put him in S tier, I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm going to be real. He's just really fun. Like, I don't have much else to say about him. He's fun. Like, that's about it. So, yeah. Next up, we have my main on killer's side, Pyramid Head. This guy on Survivor's end is pretty fun to play against as well. He has a lot of counterplay depending on how you want to play against him. He's one of the killers that you actually get to pick and choose how you play against. And there's not many killers like that in this game, to be honest. Most killers have just complete built-in counterplay, and you're not like able to choose a counterplay. You're forced to use a counterplay, right? Pyramid Head is a killer who just has free counterplay. So there's two counterplays you can do against this guy. Either you can loop him and try to loop him on pallets and vaults and try dodging his punishment of the damned attack, and it can be pretty fun dodging his M2. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty fun, right? He can hit through walls, but sometimes dodging it can be really fun. And if you're not good at dodging or you're not good at looping him, guess what? You have another counterplay. It's called holding W key. Yes, I know I did say before that I hate holding W key as a counterplay against killers, but if you're one of those people who don't like looping killers, you still can counter him. So he's one of those killers who have a lot of open counterplay, and that's why I am putting him in A tier. Yeah, he does have all these different counterplays, and technically speaking, he does have a whole W counterplay, which I hate, but you know, it's good for people who don't like looping, which is why he's an A tier. I think overall, anyone who plays against him is going to have some sort of fun against him at least. And I mean, he can tunnel really well, but like, that's against your team. Like, your team is what gets you tunneled at the end of the day, right? Like, if they cage right in front of him, that's on your team. That's not on him, right? He's just benefiting off your team making a mistake. So technically speaking, he's still an A tier in my opinion. And this might be biased, but I don't really think so. I think he's a perfectly fun killer to play against. And so yeah. Next up is Blight. Blight, similar to Hillbilly, I think is also pretty fun to play against. However, I do think Blight is a little bit more fun than Hillbilly. I'm going to put Blight in A tier. I do really like playing against Blight. There's a lot of counterplay you can do against this guy when he uses Serum. You can hide behind a wall and move around so he doesn't hit you. Me saying that doesn't seem like it's super crazy, but if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Also, you can crouch tech this guy still. You can crouch tech any killer that still can be crouch teched, like they didn't even fix it. But anyways, yeah, so Blight is pretty fun to play against. I don't think I have to say much about him, so I'm not going to. He's just A tier. Yeah, let me move on. The Twins. The Twins is the next killer, and when it comes to the Twins, I think they are, I don't know, I mean, I think they're probably like B tier-ish. It can be fun dodging Victor and kicking him and making him turn into mush of atoms. He literally just disintegrates, but yeah, I mean, they are pretty fun to play against sometimes. And if a Twins is slugging, you can pick up a survivor as soon as they're downed, or even if Victor is chasing someone and downs someone, you can kick him right after he downs them and then pick him up before Charlotte gets there. So he has, like, you know, some pretty cool counterplay, Twins, right? The Twins have a lot of counterplay you can do. And Twins is also kind of like a macro Michael killer, similar to Legion and Ghostface, which is kind of what I like. I kind of like killers like that, where there's a lot of counterplay that if you know how to do, you can do it, and you can benefit really well by doing it, right? So yeah, I think Twins is B, A, probably, B-ish, maybe, top of B, bottom A, probably. So yeah. Next up is Trickster. Trickster is an interesting killer. I think I'm going to put Trickster in C tier. But old Trickster was definitely A tier. Yeah, I don't have much to say about him. Just behavior. Please revert this guy for the greater good of everybody. Just please do it. Yeah. Next up is Nemesis. Nemesis is a weird killer. I'm going to put Nemesis in B tier just because he is kind of similar to Huntress, where he doesn't work like he's supposed to. I feel like there's moments where his whip literally touches you and it doesn't injure you, and there's moments where his whip doesn't hit you and then it hits you. Now I know that's usually probably because the neme is dragging, but in some cases they're literally not dragging and it just hits you for some reason. Also, his tech where you crouch at a vault or crouch at any elevated object and he can't hit you works like 50% of the time and doesn't work the other 50% of the time. So I don't know, he's just a very just random killer. I feel like he's just 50-50, and that's why he's going on B tier. Pinhead. When it comes to Pinhead, I don't really like playing against him that much. I mean, I think some people do like playing against him, but when it comes to me personally, I feel like when it comes to Pinhead, I rely on my team way too much to get the box. And if they don't do the box, then I'm screwed in chase, and there's very little you can do, right? So, I don't know. I think Pinhead is a weird killer, and I'm just going to put him in C tier. I don't really have much to say about him, so, yeah. Next up is Artist. So, Artist is kind of a fun killer, similar to Pyramid Head. She can hit you through walls, just like he can. And Artist can be pretty fun to play against. Now, I do know that some people don't like playing against her because they think that she's just 50-50 in chase, which she technically isn't if you actually know what you're doing against her. And, I don't really have too much to say about her either. I think she's fun. I think I'm going to put her in A tier, probably. She's just kind of just fun, I guess. I don't know. There's not much to say about her. Sadako. Sadako is probably, she's probably, B tier, I guess. When it comes to her condemned, counterplay, it's pretty boring. The only fun counterplay that I'm putting her in B tier for, because otherwise she'd be in C, the only reason why she's in B tier is running through her phase. I love running through her phase, and that's, one of her biggest counterplays that she has, and that's, the only reason why she's going in B tier, if I'm going to be honest. I just like doing it, so, yeah, that's about it for her. Next up is Dredgy Boy. So when it comes to Mr. Turkey Head over here, I think he is pretty fun to play against, right? I mean, locking his lockers right when he's about to TP can be very fun. I don't know how many people have done it, but locking a locker and then he TPs literally the second after you lock it is very funny, and it's a lot of fun every single time it happens. Also, he has some cool counterplay with his Reniment. I love chasing a dredge who uses Reniment. Not every single dredge player uses it, which is kind of confusing because it's a part of your kit. Why are you not using it? But, every dredge is usually fun to play against, I think. And I think dredge is going into A tier for that. I don't have too much else to say about him. Just that's about it, really. Next up is Meowsker. Yeah, that's right, Meowsker. I don't care. But Wesker is very fun to play against. He quite literally is fun, right? He's fun to play and he's fun to play against. And yeah, I don't think I have to say much about Wesker. I think it's pretty obvious, right? His chase power is just fun overall. It's fun to dodge. It's fun to make him vault with it. It's quite literally just fun. I don't know. I shouldn't have to explain it. So yeah, that's about it. I'm putting him in probably A or S tier. Yeah, I don't know which one, just A or S. Next up is Pixie. I'm kidding, it's Knight, but same thing, right? But anyways, so when it comes to Knight, I think Knight is quite literally I don't know, on the survivor side, playing against Knight, I guess is kind of fun sometimes, especially if the Knight isn't chasing you while a guard's on. If the Knight doesn't chase you while you have a guard hunting you, it can be pretty fun because if you actually know how to play against guards, you can get the flag, and it's quite some fun getting the flag sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. But obviously sometimes most Knights usually harass you while you're being chased by a guard, and it can be pretty boring sometimes. But overall, I think Knight is probably B tier. I think Knight is a pretty average killer when it comes to counterplay on the survivor side, and I don't really have too much to say about him other than that, I think. So yeah, I'm gonna move on. Next up is Skull Merchant. So when it comes to Skull Merchant, I actually do think she's actually pretty fun to play against, which is kind of crazy because I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that. But I'm going to put Skull Merchant in B tier. The thing is with Skull Merchant is that it's pretty fun to crouch her drones and to disable her drones without running into them without getting scanned. If you actually know how to counter her, I'm not going to get into it because this is not a how to counter Skull Merchant video, but if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Also, some Skull Merchants can do some pretty cool stuff. I love when they try double tapping you so that you can crouch them before they hit it with the scan line. It's always fun doing that. Also, some Skull Merchants are really goated and know how to do the compass tech. If you don't know what the compass tech is, I'm not going to tell you, but if you know, you know, right? And yeah, that's why she's a B tier. She's kind of just fun, like, I don't know, but you need to play against the right Skull Merchant player for it to be fun. And that's kind of the problem, right? She's B tier. If you play against a boring Skull Merchant player, obviously she's going to drop, but just hope you don't. I don't know. Yeah, so I'm going to move on. Next up is Mr. Lary. I actually don't really like playing against Lary that much, I'm going to be honest. He's very straightforward. I don't know. I think he's C tier on the counterplay scale. You pre-drop when he overcloaks so he doesn't get you. You vault so he can't get you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the only fun counterplay he has is doing the window tech, and that's quite literally it. Like, he has pretty much nothing else that is fun to do against him. EMPs, like, and that's the other thing. Like, the thing with Singularity is that you get screwed over by certain maps. Like, if you play against Singularity on Larry's Doctor's map, right? Like, he gets screwed over so hard, and it's just not fun because, like, all right, that's cool. He can't use his power. It's not really fun now. And when he does use his power, it's still not fun because it's so straightforward. He just spam TPs every 3 seconds. So, like, I don't know, bro. He's just a feel bad killer, I guess, and that's why he's going in C tier. Xenomorph. Xenomorph is kind of an interesting one. I do like playing against Xenomorphs just because every time I play against one of them, they're so goofy. Like, I love them so much. I don't know why. I think I'm going to put Xenomorph in A tier. I love using cool turret spots. Like, there are some really cool turret spots. You can hide it in grass in some maps. Like, for instance, like Garden of Joy. Like, I don't know. He can be really fun to play against. He's kind of just like one of those just goofy, fun killers. I don't know. He's just A tier. I don't have too much to talk about when it comes to Xeno. Yeah, I don't know. So, I'm going to move on. The Chuckster, or Tiffany, or whoever you want to play. Hopefully Glenn or Glenda ends up becoming a character soon. But anyways, so Chucky. When it comes to Chucky, I think Chucky is pretty fun to play against. Even when he was older and even, like, way stronger, I still thought he was super fun to play against. Now that he's weaker, you definitely have more counterplay because you can react a little bit better, but I don't know. I still think he's pretty fun. I mean, he's a dash killer. Dash killers are usually fun to play against. They're fun to dodge. And I don't really have too much to say about Chucky. Bonus points if the Chucky tries scampering against you. That's about it. Yeah. The Unknown, otherly known as the character that looks like he's from Little Nightmares. So the Unknown is pretty fun to play against. I think he's similar to Pyramid Head and Artist, where he's a killer, he can hit you through walls. So if he's trying to hit you through walls and you know that, you can play against it, and he's just very fun. He's a very fun, like, macro, micro counterplay killer. Also, similar to, for instance, like Pyramid Head, you can choose what counterplay you want to do to him, right? You can choose to break his hallucinations, or you can choose not to and have him use them in chase and try countering them in chase. He's a pretty fun killer when it comes to that, and I'm going to put him in S tier or A tier. I'm going to be real. He's a very fun killer. He's A or S, depending on how you want to see it. I'm leaving this one open for A or S choicing. It doesn't really matter. I think he's fun, though, so yeah. Vecna. Vecna is next, and I do pretty much enjoy playing against Vecna. I feel like he has a lot of cool counterplay, right? Like, he has, like, even though his counterplay is sort of built in, at least with the skeletons, he has some non-built-in counterplay when it comes to the Flight of the Damned. You can do some really cool counterplay against Flight of the Damned, like vault teching his flight, and it can be very fun. And I'm not going to get into too much stuff about him, but the more you play against him, the more you learn counterplay against him, and the more counterplay you learn, the more fun you're going to have. And that's pretty much how the character works, and that's all I have to say about him. So I'm going to put him in A tier, and yeah. Next up, we have Dracula. When it comes to Dracula, I think he's pretty fun. He can be fun to dodge his fire, similar to dodging like Nemesis Whip. He's also pretty fun dodging his wolf form, similar to dodging like Wesker or Demo. And he also has bat form, which you can do some cool counterplay stuff with. You can even vault tech his bat, which is kind of funny. And you can even vault tech, or not vault tech, sorry. You can also like pallet drop his bat also, which can also be kind of funny as well. Yeah, he has some cool counterplay, and I don't really have too much to say about him. I think we're gonna put Dracula in A tier probably when it comes to fun. The only problem is that most Dracula players don't play him for fun, and most of them usually end up camping, which would obviously lower his tiers, but because I don't usually play against Draculas at camp, I'm gonna keep him in A tier. The last killer on the list is going to be Houndmaster, and I actually really enjoy playing against Houndmaster. I'm gonna put him in, I'm gonna put her in S tier. When it comes to Houndmaster, I actually really like Houndmaster. She has a lot of counterplay. Dodging her dog in chase form can be fun, and even when she uses search form, it can be fun too, even when she uses that. So she has a lot of fun and a lot of cool counterplay, I feel like, and she's one of those killers that the more you play against, the more counterplay you find, and obviously the more counterplay you find, the more fun you're gonna have against her, right? So that's why I kind of just love playing against her personally. And also I do main Houndmaster. She is one of my other killer mains, so this also could be biased just because I know how to play against her, similar to Pyramid Head, but I don't really know. I hope more people agree with me on that though, that Houndmaster is an S tier killer, and I know that a lot of people don't, so I hopefully I can show some people some light and, you know, show that she is pretty fun to play against. And I do know that she is rare to get because her pick rate's pretty low, but yeah, just hope that you go up against a Houndmaster in your next game and try to have some fun against her. She's a very fun killer to loop, she really is. Now it's time for the actual last killer on the list, which is going to be Kaneki. Like I said prior, when I was making this video, he wasn't in the PTB yet, but now he's in the PTB, so I got to experience a little bit with him. With that being said though, Kaneki, I think counterplay wise on the survivor side is pretty fun, and I'm going to put him in A tier. He's not exactly S tier just because dodging the first injure can feel kind of impossible. Most of the fun that comes with him is dodging the second injure because you actually can, like, it kind of takes skill on his end to get that second injure. So in return, you can counter him to try and make it so he can't get that second injure. And that's kind of how it's going to work out when playing against him. And I find that kind of to be fun in most cases. With that being said though, I do think Kaneki is the most fun killer to play as. It's just not completely on a balanced scale, I think, when it comes to counterplay being fun, right? Just because that first injure is kind of free, and most counterplay comes to the second injure, which is totally fine, but it's just, I think if maybe the first injure would take a little bit more skill to hit, I think it would make the counterplay literally S tier, and you would be really fun to play against. It's just that first injure, which is my problem. But yeah, that's about it for Kaneki. So yeah, and yeah, that's about it for this entire listing of characters based on how fun they are to play against. I'm going to do one where it's how fun each killer is to play as well. And just like always, this is obviously an opinion-based video. If you have a different opinion than me, that doesn't really matter. You can have a different opinion than me. You know, it is what it is, you know. I don't really care if you have a different opinion, you know. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. And yeah, so that's about it, and just like always, peace out.